right, it is, we'll get another. All right, thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to call the Niles-Maine District Library regular board meeting with Zoom streaming to order. Cindy, if you would please, 7:03. 7:03. Cindy, can you do the roll call, please? Aaron Zerber. Here. Thank you, Madam. Diane Olson. Here. And Ryan. Here. And here. Okay, everyone can stand for the allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First point on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of April 21st, 2021. So would you like to have a motion? Motion, Jay, second? Yes, I second. Becky, second. Any discussion? Okay, go around the take roll. Approve the board minutes for the April 21st, 2021 minutes. Trustee Wilson? Diane? Yes. Trustee Ryan? Yes. Trustee Levinson? Yes. Trustee Rowland? No. Trustee Niles?
And the next thing on the agenda is actually mine for you, Linda. So if you mind coming forward, and it is Karen Dylan here. Karen, yes, would you please come forward as well. So we have two longtime trustees who are going out tonight, and we had just a little token of appreciation for them. I have a virtual key to the library. This one is in honor of Karen Diamond, thanking her for 9 years of service. Thank you very much, Karen. And I have another one, thanking Linda Ryan for 12 years of service. Thank you so much. Have been dedicated trustees and both have served as board president and a variety of other jobs and have a wonderful life job here.
Well, thank you. We appreciate all the friendships and the staff and the community that we serve. So,
It's been very interesting.
thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you. It's beautiful. Thank you. That was really sweet. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing on the, is the swearing in of the new trustees. So Lydia, is it Lydia first?
Yes. Lydia first. Come up here, please.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, and I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Library Trustee
of the Office of Library Trustee
of the Niles-Maine District Library
of the Niles-Maine District Library
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
I also have a certificate from Cook County.
Have the deed in our
I, Joseph McCullough,
I, Joseph McCullough,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Library Trustee
the duties of the office of Library Trustee
of the Niles-Maine District Library
of the Niles-Maine District Library
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Suzanne? I, Suzanne, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Library Trustee
discharge the duties of the library trustees
of the Niles-Maine District Library
of the Niles-Maine District Library
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I have to be recorded. Do you do?
Yeah,
Don't I? Don't
And
I?
Patty as well, yes. I think I'll do that.
Oh, wait. I, David,
I, David,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of
support
America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Library
the
Trustee
duties of the office of library trustee
of the Niles-Maine District Library
of the Niles-Maine District Library
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay, now we will be voting for new officers. I will, I'm looking down.
Look at the,
Yeah, I have to be both sides. Nominations are now in order for the office of president.
I'd like to nominate,
Yes.
I would like to nominate the trustee chairman of the board of council. I second the nomination.
Do you accept nomination, Carol?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? Then we'll be voting by roll call. Mary?
And Sharon vote? Yes, I vote.
Trustee Levitt?
Yes.
Lisa? Trustee Canada?
No.
Magruder,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
Diane.
yeah, that's you, your notes.
No.
Trustee Rosanna.
No.
Okay, nominations, is it?
Four yeses and three yes.
Four against and three. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice president. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Trustee Olivia Planishik for Vice President.
I second the nomination.
Are there any other nominations? Or do you accept first? Yes. Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, then we'll take a roll call, please.
Trustee Gerber,
Yes.
Trustee Muziak,
Yes.
Trustee King Adams,
Yes.
Trustee Maluka,
Cool.
Magruder, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
No.
Trustee Rosansky. Yes. Trustee Shelley.
Yes.
The nominations are now in order for the office of secretary.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Because it's different on here.
I know.
I'm not,
The official paper.
okay.
Cool.
The official.
I nominate Susan.
Are there any seconds?
I second the nomination.
Are there any other nominations?
I may nominate Diane Olson.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nomination declined. There'll be no further nominations. We'll take a roll call. For secretary.
Trustee Maluka,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
Who are we voting for? Did you
this is the
decide?
secretary.
Secretary
No, but did we get?
is Susan Schonfeld was
Okay.
nominated as secretary. We are voting for finance.
So, how are you voting?
Um,
Trustee Rosansky,
Okay, yes.
Trustee Shelley.
Yes.
Trustee Gerber,
Yes.
Trustee Muziak,
Yes.
Trustee King Adams. So, yes,
How many yes?
seven.
7 yeses. Nominations are now in order for the office of treasurer. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Trustee Joseph Cool.
Is there a second? Julie, do you accept?
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? Then we'll take the roll call again. For office of treasurer.
Trustee Muziak,
Yes.
Trustee King Adams. Trustee Magruder,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
No.
Trustee Rosansky,
No.
Trustee Shelley. Yes. And Trustee Gerber.
Yes.
4 yeses, 3 noes.
And congratulations to to all of you.
Thank you.
And now, the vice president.
Thank you, thank you. I would like to thank our former officers for their service, and I welcome our newly elected officers, Vice President Trustee Hanushek, Treasurer Trustee Makula, and Secretary Trustee Schoenfeld. As newly elected trustees to the Niles-Maine District Library Board, I am looking forward to our collective efforts with residents and staff to provide a sustainable and invitational library of the future for all of our library community. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is trustee reports. Oh, my mistake. Okay, go right ahead. We have public comment. Who's handling that?
So you have a list of the people that are here in person, and then I have the ones that were sent.
Okay, great, thank you.
Today, Nancy?
Yes.
That's all right.
Hi, I'm Jerry Sapansky, 45-year resident of Niles. I've been, first of all, I'd like to congratulate all the new board members. It's a pleasant change. I've been watching all the library meetings online or in person or on the phone, and this is a welcome change. The old board members seem to be big spenders. Go to your tax bills over the past 6 years and see what's happened. I don't think it's a library anymore. I think everyone is hiding in bushes, trying to make it a community center. If it's a library, I know I can run it for half the expense as a community center. This is where all our programs who have been unaccounted for, no data on as far as attendance, who is in attendance, etc. Say, look at your tax bills. And I have just some other comments. Library board trustees should not have to use FOIA requests for information from the director or the finance director. If you look at the later part of the meeting, you'll see they have to go through FOIA to get information. They're the trustees. We don't want anything hidden here. The library director and finance director are accountable for the information to the board. The library director should provide information on all programs, the frequency of them, the attendance, where the attendees are from, and employee cost estimates as to that cost. No information, to my mind, in the past 6 years have been given on all these programs. If you have 20 programs and 3 people attend each program, that's not a program. That's what we're spending the money on. Again, look at your taxes. There shouldn't be any food in the library except for the employees. All people in the library should provide their library card. Sometimes this library has been used, and I personally checked it out in 2018, as a babysitting service. The parents drop the kids off, they sit in the lobby, the parents go out to dinner and then pick them up. Again, this is not a community center, it's a library. Why all the computers in the library? How many times are all those computers used at once? Again, get the cost estimates, look at them, and then decide. We haven't had any information on these things. Report on my pet peeve was that 3D printer that was pushed through. I'd like a separate report, and I think the board members should see how many different people have actually used that 3D printer from its inception. I'm just guessing. I have no idea as to the electrical output for that thing or how many the same people have used that machine. I could be wrong. Prove me wrong. Show us the facts. Show the board the facts. We can't spend money on that kind of stuff. Okay, and the other thing is, I really like, Ms. Lemke, the way the library runs. You come in to check a book, the systems are fine. Don't turn this place financially into a community center. It's a library. And I thank you all for your time.
The next speaker is Elizabeth Lyons. Sorry.
Hello? Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me? My name is Elizabeth Lynch. I'm a homeowner of your community, Niles. I have 2 children. I'm here specifically to address our new trustees, Ms. Lucia, Ms. Schoenfeld, and Mr. Rukula. At the last meeting, one of your supporters called in to say that she truly believes in her heart that you have not come on the board just to say no. That you will look with open minds at the needs of the library and the community. I hope very much that she is right. I hope that you will listen to the expertise of staff and the voices of the community members, like me, that love and need the library. You ran on greater transparency and community involvement, and I ask that you live up to those principles. I would love the chance to meet with each of you to talk about why the library is so important to my family, why this library was part of our decision to buy a home here and to raise our family here. But I have just one voice. Before you make any cuts or changes to the staff, the collections, and programs, I urge you to do a thorough assessment. You could conduct a community needs assessment. You could create a task force. You could hold workshops or community conversations promoted to library users and non-users that allow us to share our priorities and our hopes for the new era that you have promised us at the library. At the very least, we need to hear from the people in the community that have come to rely on your services. Before you make cuts or shift priorities, you should hear from the thousands of library users that are your neighbors. The parents whose children learn to read here, the seniors that found a way to stay engaged and active, teens that are keeping out of trouble, job seekers who learned a new skill, people who met and learned from a neighbor outside their political bubble. The last year has been tough for all of us. But our struggles are not just financial. We have been isolated, fearful, and politically divided. To be frank, this campaign divided us further. To me, and to many residents, the opportunities that the library creates to meet each other and connect over something positive are not frivolous expenditures, but an essential part of rebuilding our community. I don't know you as well as the supporter who called in last month, but I hope her faith in you was not misplaced. Please, be thorough, be open, be willing to hear how much the library means to so many of your neighbors.
Michelle Ashcroft.
Hi, Tishy Ashcroft. I want to congratulate the newly elected library trustees. Thank you.
Steve,
Dowdy. Dowdy.
Dowdy.
My name is Steve Dowdy.
I'm here because I wanted to comment on a comment that was read to the board last August, and I was not able to attend the meeting. The subject of my comment was roof replacement. And it was my opinion that the board was wasting taxpayers' money to hire a consultant to write specification and hire a project manager to manage the job. I stated the great Fritz was a smooth talker, and I gave him and the board 3 easy steps to replace the roof. I also stated a great lack of the skill set to manage this project, and again, was wasting taxpayers' money. Then I stated that I have spent 45 years of experience as a facility manager with the degrees and certifications to confirm I know what I'm talking about. I've maintained over millions of square feet of roofing. I sent my my public comments to Susan Lemke and to read to the board. To my surprise, she apparently forwarded them to the board president, Tim. At the meeting, Susan read my comments in a degrading manner and then stated that I was rude. Note, according to policy, the board does not respond to public comments. But that night, Tim had prepared a written response. And remember, I was not there. So, Tim said a lot of nice things about Greg, and then compared Greg's background as an accountant and with my 45 years as a facility manager, and then said he would follow Greg's recommendation. So the board followed Greg's recommendation and wasted a lot of the taxpayers' money. I'm here to say that I don't feel that I was rude. I think part of it was because of the way my comments were read. And, I think that when Susan read my comments, they were read with intent. I'm also happy to see we have new board members. The voters have spoken and made changes, and rightfully so. Another request I have is never allow Susan Lemke or any acting executive director to host an election forum. Long story behind that, but I won't keep it. Finally, if you remember, Susan, you had to send me some emails that I requested, and just to say, I was not real happy with what some of the things that you said. So I don't think you want me to bring them in, they're in the car, but let's put that behind us. So going forward, thank you for listening up, and enjoy the next few years.
Good evening, board and staff. My name is Stephen Ussell, 8141 Bell, Niles. I just wanted to congratulate the new elected trustees on the board tonight, and wanted to make a few comments as well. I know last month there were some comments by Trustee Keen Adams in regards to Trustee Derblick's letter to the editor in the Niles Journal. And Trustee Keen Adams concluded that what Carolyn was saying was untruthful. And two of the points that Carolyn had made, one was that the videos of meetings, some of them are edited. It could be a simple cut, could be a title faded at the beginning and the end. Thing is, they are all edited. And some of them do have cuts of missing time from the meetings. I don't know how long they are, but they're there. I'm a videographer. I know how to spot some of those things. So if you take the time to go through, 5-6 years of board meetings, you'll find some that do have information missing. The second point is also addressing what Carolyn wrote, that Trustee Keen Adams said was untruthful, was the board meeting packets with the agendas and information from other consultants and whatnot. There's PDFs up there. They take you out of the page. You have to look at it. So it could be a little more streamlined. I think there should be a little more of the materials that are talked about amongst this board, ready for the residents, for all of us to see, and come to our own conclusions. And one other thing about this past election, there were a lot of dirt that was thrown around verbally online. A lot of things weren't true. And nobody went and corrected them. And some of the people are in this room, but I'm not going to point anybody out. But it comes down to, they treat each other with a little more respect. We all come in here, we're obviously all here for the library. That's a good start. We're all in one place, we're all doing something for common cause. But if we're going to continue to butt heads, I mean, this is not going to be fun. So I look forward to seeing a lot of productivity on this board going forward. I especially look forward to the next 2 years to see how this board matures. And I look forward to the rest of tonight. Thank you.
Martin knows what you do. Exactly.
So good evening, everybody. I'd first like to say congratulations to our newest board members. You worked hard to get here, and your job will not be easy. The election was hard fought, but ultimately, the voters elected you to be stewards of this beautiful library, but also financial stewards for the people who ultimately pay for most everything you see here. I have the utmost confidence that you will be open-minded and fair. I also expect that you will be inquisitive to learn everything you can about how this library functions. We love this library. There may be opportunity for change. Change is a two-edged sword. It can be both exciting and frightening, all at the same time. At some point, all of you on this board will either have to change, make change, accept change, or find that there is no change needed. The most important thing to remember is that every one of you love this library, or you would not be here. You may have different ways of going about it, but ultimately, your decisions will be made not by emotion, but by observation, interviews, review of data. In conclusion, I'd like to quote Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. The most dangerous phrase in the English language, perfect place for a library, we've always done it this way. Congratulations all, and thank you.
Good evening. The man I call my rabbi, Dennis Prager, said it best. You can have all the skill, you can have all the talent, you can have all the education, you can have all the knowledge. Without courage, it's nothing. Courage is acting and going forward while you're scared. There is no one that's been courageous that wasn't scared at the same time. We have three people, Joe McCullough, Olivia Anushik, and Susan Schoenfeld, who have stepped up with courage in an atmosphere that is not all that inviting. Because there's a fictional story that we have got to overcome. The fictional story is, if you cut a budget, if you cut an expenditure, the library will die. People will suffer. Lunches won't be had. I have a real story for you. What if we can have all that at a less cost? There is no reason why we can't have everything here fully funded and still abate back to the taxpayers a minimum of $8 to $10 million over the next 4 years, as we did at Maine Township. We haven't lost one program. We have $11 million in the bank. And we operate all of Maine Township at a budget that I believe is about $450,000 less annually to this library. So when someone says to you that I am a Chevy salesman and I sell great cars, and this car you can get and I'm gonna put it in your driveway, and you say, thank you, David, very much, and it's worth $35,000, then you get the bill for $72,000, I'm not doing you any favors. Courage. Now, when you vote for someone, you're not voting for that person. You're not voting for their tie or shirt. You're not voting for the way they comb their hair. Each person stands for policy. You're voting for their policies. These voters that voted were knowledgeable. They took the time. And they saw, what are your policies going to be? This board was not answering the call as far as the policies that were sought. Not only that were they not answering, they were actually answering with a dial tone. Well, now the phone's been connected again. And that's because of you three and the courage of Carolyn Durban as well. Now, that old song, fun, 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 until the voters take the checkbook away. When the board writes checks, it's the boards that writes checks, it's the taxpayers that fund it. We just lost a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives because our population crunched, because people are leaving. They can't afford Illinois because they can't afford to waste money. We're making it that way for our residents. This one of 6,960 local governmental bodies can make a difference. We showed the example of Maine Township, and it wasn't greeted with arms open. No one's throwing roses at you as you walk down the street. But you do the right thing. Now, one of the things that bothered me was what happened years ago with Friends of the Library. It's my opinion, strictly my opinion, for whatever it's worth, that money was stolen by the board. They just took it. I wanted to see that reversed, and it wasn't reversed. And ever since then, it drew my attention, and this budget is on its way to $10 million annually, if it wasn't for you stepping in along with Carolyn, if you look at the projections. So, what do we want to be? We want to be responsible, we want to be courteous, we want to be mature. In other words, we need to be fiduciaries with the money that's not yours. It's the taxpayers' funds. And I thank you so much for listening. With one last note. When watching the tape, there was a resignation and appointment action that was taken by this board, by the previous board, on their way out the door. The cars were running, lights were shutting off, and they made this resignation appointment right at the last bell, knowing that the new board was coming in. Now, first of all, we didn't do that in Maine Township. There were a number of things we said, wait a minute, things we wanted to address. We said, no, let's leave it up to the new board. That's what the voters said. That board didn't listen to the voters. Dial tone again. But what else did they do? They did not post the resignation and appointment on the agenda. They did not post it on the website, as far as I saw. And the Open Meetings Act requires a posting. If that posting isn't done, I suggest, and I don't know everything, I suggest that that action is reversible, and it should be reversed, so that the voters who brought in this board can consider it. Now, maybe the board will go along with what happened when they consider it, but it should be at the hands of this board. So I'm asking that, and suggesting through your legal counsel that you look into this to see whether or not what was done was proper. Because I suggest that it may not have been. And if it was not, it should be reversed and then done properly. Thank you.
So that is all of our comments from people who are in attendance. I'm going to come to the mic just so everybody can hear. They have a great many comments that were submitted in advance. So here we go. Comment number 1 from a Jeanette Lee. Library Board. I would like to welcome the new members to the Library Board. As there was a lot of talk about cutting programs throughout the campaign, I would like to voice my support of the wide range of programming the library offers. As an adult in my 40s, I love the fact that there are cultural and art programs to attend and not just programs for job searching and job skills for my age group. Please don't consider my age group as so one-dimensional that we were only interested in job skills. My kids have grown up with library programming from multiple storytime options and Reading with Rover to Wonderground, and now are about to enter the age where they can attend drama club and Dungeons and Dragons meetups and other exciting programs in the teen underground. The recent collaboration between the library and Culver School has been extraordinary. The monthly Famished for Fiction program at Culver is very popular and has been getting students excited to talk about books with each other. Please don't look at this program as competition for the school's librarian. Look at it as the incredible collaboration that it is. I have found the librarians and staff to be extremely knowledgeable, and I hope that you rely on their expertise to determine the right choices for the library's collection of materials, as well as the library's selection of programming. The library's budget is not just a number. It reflects programming and people that the community enjoys and counts on, bringing people together and enriching their lives. There's number 2 from Carter Esterling. Good evening. I live in Niles with my family, and it is my understanding that there exists the possibility of cuts to the library's budget and programs. We were dismayed to learn this. Since moving here in 2017, we have benefited from the library's breadth of offerings. As a partial list, we have checked out many hundreds of adult and children's books, attended in-person children's story times and other events, used our library membership to access Overdrive with Libby, Canopy, and Flipster, and accessed online programming during the COVID pandemic. Before the pandemic, we often used the library as a place to meet friends and to spend time browsing on bad weather days, and we look forward to resuming this. We are also planning on using the passport services when again available, among other things. Particularly in a place such as Niles, where there are limited places for public gathering, I believe it would be short-sighted and unfortunate to diminish the library's funding. It is a public good, with benefits that extend beyond its physical location. I would be willing to pay a greater share in taxes to ensure the continuance of a welcoming library with broad offerings such as we have now. Thank you. I should mention too that these are in the order they were received. I did not organize them. This is from Tom Lynch. Mrs. Lemke, I know there are several new board members starting this month, and I wanted to write to let you and all the trustees know how much I value the excellent work that the library is doing. The library was one of the reasons my wife and I moved to Niles, and it is a central part of the life we've built here. I urge all of the board members to continue supporting the library building, staff, and programs. I am more than happy to pay my share of taxes to help support the education the library provides and a sense of community it creates. Thank you. My name is Megan Roberts. I live in Niles with my husband and daughter. It is my understanding that there are budget cuts being considered. I wanted to share some of the ways we regularly use the library so you can consider these things as you consider the budget. When we moved to Niles in 2017, we began to visit the library every weekend, not just as a place for reading materials, but as a place to connect with the community and meet people. It was one of our favorite spots around town, and we met so many people who've become close friends. We continued to use the library weekly in this way until March of 2020. During quarantine, we placed weekly orders for books, magazines for all of us. This was one of the only things we looked forward to in 2020. The bag of reading materials was a savior. Now that the library is somewhat open again, we continue to go in weekly to check out, usually 10 to 15 short chapter books for our daughter, who is a voracious reader, as well as magazines like Click, Spider, Highlights, and Animal Tales. For us, We consistently read from the hot picks as well as from the periodicals and a variety of nonfiction texts. I love the vibe of the library, filled with kind people and helpful staff. It's one of my favorite places around town. My daughter loves that she feels welcome and at home there. Thank you for your service to the Niles community. We look forward to continuing to use the library in all these ways and more. This one is from Jennifer, her last name C-I-O-K. I'm concerned about rumors of budget, staff, and programming cuts at the Niles-Maine District Library. As a former teacher in the area, I know how many of my students use this library for so many different purposes, from reliable technology to having a safe place to go after school. They were also able to find books that reflect their identities and books that allowed them to escape or to dream big about their future. Please keep the funding for the services and staff at the library. They are truly essential. Please make sure that you continue to add and renovate and reimagine what libraries can be used for, as Niles certainly deserves to have that space for all to use. This is from Elizabeth Seaskin. Yesterday, my son begged me to take him to the library during his lunch break from remote learning. I often struggle to find my son just the right books, because his tastes have moved beyond most picture books, but he's not quite ready for chapter books either. The librarian we worked with asked about his favorite characters and helped us find some spooky and funny stories that he was excited to read on his own, all caps, which is a huge win. Then we went downstairs to the teen room and he fell in love. I don't know anything about video games, so I always have trouble helping him find ones that are at his skill and maturity level. Rachel got him talking and knew just the right way to draw out the information she needed before finding him the perfect stuff. Then they talked about TV shows and drawings, and she got him coming up with an idea for a movie. He's so excited about it, he wants to write a letter to a movie studio. We left with a huge stack of books and games and a writing project. But the help from your staff was even more valuable than the stuff. I'm so grateful to your staff for helping my son find things he loves and taking some of the pressure off of me to be an expert on his latest interests and hobbies. Your staff are invaluable to us. This one is from David Sutherland. Hello, growing up in Chicago, I have spent a lot of time in some very fine libraries. Upon moving to Niles, I was so pleasantly surprised when I first visited our library. The space, books, programs, events, equipment, curation, and friendly staff have all together made our library one of Niles' greatest treasures. Even during this pandemic crisis, the library didn't skip a beat and went above and beyond in looking after the community and, from what I understand, their own staff. We rely on the library for books for my child, who is a voracious reader, and the variety of ways I can access information to fit into my own busy schedule. The Niles-Maine Library is an institution I am truly proud to recommend, although thoughts of hoarding this resource have crossed my mind once or twice. Wink emoji. I want to commend the library staff for tirelessly providing such a rich resource during some very challenging times. I strongly support the library as it is now, and I am counting on a future where we can find opportunities to make it even better. It's hard to put a price tag on such a crucial pillar of our community, but for what we pay in taxes, it's a bargain. Thank you for your service, and hope to see you all in person when this pandemic is finally under control. This is from a Teresa Roach.
I'm sorry, can we please ask the audience to refrain from all the comments are being read?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So from Teresa Grote,
You may have to go back to the name, what's the person that you're,
her last name is G-R-O-A-T, first name Teresa.
thank you.
Ms. Lemke, full disclosure, I'm not a Niles resident. I am also an employee of CPL's Thomas Hughes Children's Library. I have, however, frequented your library and attended programs at your library with and without my sons for more than 20 years. I do not hesitate to refer Chicago patrons to your library if they wish to expand their search for materials, as the Chicago Public Library has a reciprocating agreement with Niles. So it's with some alarm that I watched a video of a Niles Library forum where an individual made several statements that were clearly anti-inclusion and borderline racist. We celebrate diversity at CPL.
Wow.
We celebrate our patrons.
When was that?
We celebrate our patrons of various nationalities, faiths, and orientations. The statement that books reflecting different cultures are not welcome at Niles Library would indicate those cultures themselves are excluded as well. Yes, it's important to learn the language of the country where you now make your home, but just as important to retain your culture and pass it on to your children. And where better to do that than at our local library? And how better to do it than through books in your native language? I do so hope that opinion reflected in the video does not become the norm for any library. This is from someone named, first name R-O-N-A-K, last name McFadden. I wanted to write the board to share my support of the library. The library is a place for all folks to connect. It's open to everyone and the foundation of our community. Our library needs to be available, accessible, and welcoming to all our community. My grandmother, who immigrated from India, felt welcome at our library. She saw people that looked like her. The access to education for everyone was her American dream come true. As times have changed, the needs and how we meet people where they are change. The library needs materials and programming that reflects the community. Please continue to keep our library welcoming for all. And it concludes with the quote, "Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation," by Walter Cronkite. This is from Linda Wayce, W-A-Y-C-I-E. When I was working, I started a grandparent support group at the Niles Library. The library graciously allowed me to use a room for a meeting and the room next door for a caregiver to care for the grandparents' grandchildren while we used the library for a meeting. After the meeting, the grandparents were encouraged to check out books to read to their grandchildren. What a wonderful outreach to this population. I have taught English in the Read to Learn program. While getting to know the students, I discovered that though they had a library card, they were not comfortable going to the library. They didn't know where to get the books they could easily read, and too uncomfortable asking for help, though we know librarians are very helpful and friendly. I took them to the library, showed them where the easy English fiction and nonfiction readers were. I also learned that my Spanish-speaking students wanted to check out the same book in English and Spanish, which she did. What a great idea. I think it is easy to find out what foreign language books are being checked out and to continue to provide materials in those languages. I want to think that the Niles Library mission is to connect people and reading, movies, etc. material. Opening up people's minds to new ideas and enriching lives by learning should be the goal of the library. If you open the door with materials in the native language of your residents, you bring them into contact with so many other services they can access. Yes, there can be English language classes at the library, but the library can do both, teach English and have material in native languages. My hope for all libraries is to make their spaces welcoming to all and learn the barriers to people coming to the library and overcoming those barriers. All right, and now I have to apologize because my staff has written a lot of comments, so I'm embarrassed to read them, but they are comments, so I'm going to. My name is Rachel Coleus. I am one of the teen librarians here, and I'm reaching out as both a staff member and a community stakeholder. I know that many of our board members are new today, so I'd like to first say welcome. I'm writing to express my appreciation for our director, Susan Lemke, because I think it's hard to know what a staff culture is like from the outside, so I hope my letter sheds some light on how highly valued she is here. I've only been at the Niles-Maine District Library for 3 years, but it was obvious to me that the culture among staff here is warm and welcoming, almost immediately after I started. I credit quite a lot of that positivity to Susan's leadership. Attitude tends to trickle down from the top, and Susan is someone who always leads by example. Her door is wide open to any staff member who wants to talk. She takes the time to carefully consider our thoughts and feelings before making big decisions. She's transparent and upfront with the staff. Her attitude is always positive, and she does not hesitate to celebrate us as individuals and departments when she notices us doing an excellent job. And she always notices when we do a great job because she is personally invested in every facet of the library. These examples don't even begin to cover Susan's deep understanding of libraries and their value in the community. The professionalism she brings to her work cannot be overstated. She is someone who knows what a library can and should do for patrons, and she has an in-depth knowledge of every library process. She is both an incredible leader and passionate library advocate. I could go on and on about the incredible work Susan does as a director day to day, but I think it's important to underline my immense gratitude for her leadership, specifically this past year. I don't want to beat around the bush on this. By keeping us employed and working throughout the pandemic, Susan single-handedly protected my physical and mental health. If I had been laid off or furloughed, I would have been displaced from the apartment I rent. I would have lost my medical insurance, and I'm not really sure where I would be right now. Susan spent countless hours supporting us while we kept the library running, serving our community in every way possible, both virtually and physically, and she kept this invaluable institution running safely above all us. It was not a small feat, but Susan protected both the library and community through one of the hardest years we've ever faced. It feels impossible to include all of Susan's professional accomplishments in one short letter. Not that short, sorry. But her success shines through the success of everyone who works at the Niles-Maine District Library. The library wouldn't be the same without Susan, and her absence would be felt across all levels of our library. I shudder to think where we'd be after this past year without her, because I can't imagine us getting through it without her strong dedication to this beautiful library. I know these details about Susan will become clearer the longer you serve on this board. Thank you for your time.
Susan, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Are these the same letters that were emailed to all the trustees?
Yes, it's not all of them. They sent some of them in specifically as public
So
comments.
some of these are different than what we received in the email?
I don't know about that, but it's not all that you received. You received something like 24 by email. This is not all of them. These are just the ones that the staff requested to have read tonight.
Okay, but these are the, what we have, these are the
Yes.
same ones we have. Okay, thank you.
Dear board members, welcome. Congratulations on your positions on the library board. I hope you find your work here at the Niles-Maine District Library as fulfilling as I do. I want to take a few moments to introduce myself and let you know what I do here at the library. My name is Aileen Hammond. I started working at the library in 2012. I am a resident of Niles and moved here in 1994 from Chicago. My library there was the Edgebrook branch of the Chicago Public Library. I worked at that branch for 3 years with my brother. It is there that I met Susan Lemke. She was a children's librarian and let me help out with story time and decorate her display windows. This is where I learned how valuable the public library is. My parents never took me to the library since we only had one car, so I never really knew what I was missing. Watching parents come in with their children for programs and books made me realize that when I had children of my own someday, the library would be an integral part of their lives. I loved it there. My children grew up at this library starting with story time. From there, they joined summer reading club. We attended the second Sunday specials, and they participated in the library talent show when they Irish step danced on the stage. During all this, I managed to sneak in some reading for myself. I knew when my kids got older, I was going to work at this library. Not only do I work here, but both of my children worked here also. They worked here all through college to pay for their tuition. My daughter is now a librarian at the Northbrook Library, and I would like to believe it stems from this library. I started in patron services as a clerk at the front desk. I love working with the public. From there, I moved to outreach services where I filled an important need to service our patrons that cannot get to the library. Many of these patrons are in nursing homes, senior centers, and at home. They are a vital part of our community, and the library is such an important source for them. I learned a lot working in this department from these patrons. They made me a better employee by teaching me empathy and patience. Their knowledge and stories make me realize how much I still need to learn. They must never be dismissed or forgotten. Last February, I moved from that department into adult services and now work with interlibrary loans and am back on service desks serving patrons. When COVID-19 shut the library down, I didn't know what to expect. Like everyone else, I was unsure of everything. Susan Lemke assured all of us that we would get through this together as a team, and she went above and beyond to provide opportunities to work from home while ensuring we were safe. She has weekly meetings and keeps us updated on what to expect to the best of her ability. The library board plays such an important role during times like this. I cannot express how thankful and grateful I am to have a library director whom I feel I can go to and be heard. Susan is the common thread throughout this entire letter. She makes me want to work hard for our patrons and welcome them back with confidence that we are safe. As we enter a new phase, I wish you good health and look forward to working with you. This one is from April Lee of Youth Services. Over the last 15 years, I have worked in 7 different public libraries, and I have never had a director that I admired and respected as much as I do Susan Dunlapke.
What is the point of this?
It's public comment. Were submitted for public comment, so we need to read them. From the first week I started at Niles-Maine District Library,
But
I
it's someone's
noticed how.
story. It's not a comment, it's someone's
Point of
story.
order. President, can you please keep the audience from disrupting?
Susan, just to be clear, these are public comments even though they were sent to us.
They sent them separately labeled public comment. Yes.
So they decided.
That's just
to
staff.
vote. Can you
They
say
did.
there's something we can do?
That's not public, it's staff.
I'm going as fast as I can.
Staff, right.
Public is not staff.
Yes, exactly. Did they write these comments during library
No, they're
time?
staff members, that's not fair.
All right, well, let me just keep going here. They are public comments, let me just keep going.
not public, they're
From the
staff.
first week I started at Niles, I noticed how present Susan was. She wasn't up in her office all day, but instead she was interacting with the public and with library staff, getting to know us. I truly feel that an effective director needs to be in touch with their employees and with the public, so I've always felt encouraged and valued by Susan's practice of staying present. During my time at Niles, anytime I ever had a question, concern, or comment to share with Susan, I knew I could always poke my head in her door or send her an email, which is always answered promptly. Especially during the pandemic, during which we were all so distanced, Susan always answered my questions the same day and helped calm my concerns. Because of this, I've always felt so supported by her. I really think there is something to say for library directors who have worked their way into a position. Susan has a history of working in libraries in a multitude of roles, so she understands the perspectives of all staff, from us librarians to our patron services associates, because she's been in our shoes before. It's truly rare to get all of these qualities in a director. Susan is such a gem, and I have so much gratitude for all she's done for us and our library.
I don't want to hear this.
My name is Kate Levinson, and I have served as a youth services librarian at Niles-Maine District Library for more than 11 years. I want to congratulate and welcome the newest members of the North Niles Board of Trustees. I am writing to express my appreciation for our director, Susan Dunlapke. I'm gonna try to truncate this just a little bit, because this is taking so long.
Thank you.
Over time, I began.
Tell us how many more you have.
10, maybe less, if they're not all staff. There are some others that came later.
Can we defer these to the next meeting?
That's not how public comment works, I'm sorry. I know it's hard to listen to. Over time, I began to understand that what makes Susan an effective leader is her deep and careful approach to decision-making, paired with her 22 years of organizational knowledge at Niles-Maine District Library. This is a subtle skill set, a silent one. It is often overlooked and undervalued. But over the years, as I witnessed Susan climb the ladder at Niles, it is this patient, deliberative approach to developing policy and protocols that make Niles-Maine District Library an effective workplace and community resource. That is from Kate Levinson. This one is from Leslie Hartunian. I think I am one of the newest employees hired right before the pandemic. While I do not have years of examples of appreciation, I do appreciate all that has been done this past year. I feel staff safety was always important to Susan, along with making access to the collection available to the public. Susan also went out of her way to attend village meetings with the village to help get the staff vaccinated and treated as essential workers. Weekly communication was so very important during this crazy time when staff was kept up to date with the Wednesday Zoom meeting. Refunding the tax dollars back to the community was such a generous gesture, realizing the difficulties many community members were facing. I don't think this got enough recognition.
Excuse me, Susan, I think I'm gonna need to interject here. This Board of Trustees had an opportunity to include additional public comments to the public, and during our review of that recommendation from a resident, the current board, some of the current board members and the previous board decided if we allowed public comments at the end before we voted, we would be here all night. So the trustees chose to vote against that. So I have to say, now that we've been going through public comments, it's 10 after 8, and we do need to move on to the meeting. We may have to postpone those until the next board meeting because we have an agenda of quite a bit of business.
All right, well, you are the
And it
president,
does,
so I
and
will
it
defer
does
to
fall
you.
under the fact that our trustees refused to allow the residents additional comments because they said it would take too long in the meeting. And unfortunately, this has proven that point.
Okay, well, I will defer to you. You are the board president. I just have two more that are not staff. One is staff, but it relates to an item on the agenda. To the Niles-Maine District Library Board of Trustees, I urge you to act today to approve the recommended negotiated renewal of the library's healthcare insurance plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I want to call your attention to the following statements pulled from that motion under new business. United Healthcare has submitted a bid which will save the library money by using a provider network which is narrower than that of Blue Cross Blue Shield. This would cause some significant disruption in the treatment of some of the library's employees. There were a few employees who had no doctors or service providers in the network. One employee's oncologist was not in the network, for example. The doctors who are missing from the network tend to be specialists who are treating patients on a long-term basis. We also looked at the drugs covered by the core network. We followed essentially the same process as we did with the doctors and service providers and received similar results. We recommend that the library renew its health insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield, given the uncertainty around the pricing of UHS and the lack of a broad network of doctors and service providers in their offering. I would like you to carefully consider what message your action would send to the library staff were you to decide that saving a little money this year with UHS, only to spend more money next year and even more the year after, is better for the library than ensuring that staff can continue to see our doctors and take the medications we need to keep on living and working. Our staff is counting on you to make the right decision tonight in deciding to pass the motion to renew the library's healthcare insurance plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I have Renee Sutherland, who is a resident. When I decided to move to Niles more than 20 years ago, the biggest draws for me were the proximity to Chicago and the quiet neighborhood. It wasn't until we were about to have our son and were deciding whether to add on to our house or move to a bigger house that we looked more critically at the schools and library, and those were an important part of why we decided to stay here. The Niles-Maine District Library is the place where, as a toddler, my son learned how to share at the train table and learned how to pay attention and be part of a group at story times. Years ago, when I was between jobs, it was a source of free programming when we couldn't afford to pay for classes or activities. When we were looking at preschool options, we were able to meet teachers from many schools all at once at the preschool fair there. During the pandemic, we were able to put books on hold and pick them up contact-free, and my son's been able to participate in virtual programs. Like so many of our neighbors, we're looking forward to this year's summer reading program. Most of us don't have time to participate in or watch board meetings for all of the various boards in Niles, and when it comes to the library, we know that our library has wonderful staff and excellent leadership, and we count on that continuing. Thank you to the director, librarians, and other staff, and Board of Trustees for supporting the mission of our library. That is from Renee Sutherland. And then the last one is very short and very sweet. It says, "I love our library," from Evan. This was also received as a public comment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay, the next item on the agenda. We are at number 9, trustee reports. President, I do have something brief I'd like to share. During the past couple of weeks, I had the opportunity to accompany each newly elected trustee for a tour of the Niles-Maine Library. I had the pleasure of meeting many dedicated library staff. We went behind the scenes and received a detailed explanation and view of our library functions. It was a very informative experience and an opportunity to meet our staff. For years, I have tried unsuccessfully to get a board tour of the library, so this opportunity was a welcomed experience for me, and it provided an in-depth knowledge of our functions. Okay, do any other trustees have a comment they would like to make? Trustee Hanushek.
I was able to go on the tour. I learned a lot. I met a lot of staff that appreciated it, and I also
to go out and register for a conference, I learned a lot about my role as a trustee. Thank you. Trustee Schoenfeld.
It was a wonderful opportunity to meet some of you and actually see what each trustee was able to do and be a part of. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Trustee Makula.
I took the tour twice, and there's still a lot more in the libraries. We should have a high focus on that.
Thank you. Trustee Rosansky.
I have participated in some of the Zoom workshops and so on, and I'm looking forward to doing it some more this month.
Thank you. Trustee Olson. Thank you. Trustee King Adams.
Yes, I would like to welcome all the members to the board, and I am looking forward to working together for what we love, which is the library, so looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the yarn dog program coming up soon, where we get to make pom-poms with yarn, and we will be decorating outside of the library.
If you want to stay down.
Okay, our next, thank you, Trustee King Adams. Our next item on the agenda is payment of bills. May I have a motion for payment of bills?
Do we want to hear the treasurer's report?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Technically,
Go right ahead.
I'm still getting the report for last month.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. This is a report for April, the ninth month of the fiscal year. We are 73% of the rate for the fiscal year. Revenues are at 90%. Expenditures are at 88%. Library materials, 84% are 84%. Library operating expenditures are at 53%. General administration is at 72%. Employee benefits is at 88%. Workers' comp is at 61%. Unemployment compensation is at 33%. Total expenditures are at 66% of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rosansky. Okay, our next order of business is payment of bills. May I have a motion to approve operating expenses of $243,938.60, payroll expenses of $274,801.12, special reserve expenses of $83,528.58, for a total monthly expense of $602,268.30.
So motion.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions regarding the payment of bills?
Yes, I'm looking at this, first of all, are these checks that have been actually sent out, or they're pending our approval?
They're pending your approval, it's actually been drafted, and these are for invoices that we have received, and services that
I see. One I object to is the one from the BBC services for BBC check for $32,000.
I'd like to look at what you're talking about.
Yes, page one.
It's special reserves, page 1.
Oh, page one.
So maybe at the back of the check register.
It's about 12 and down.
It's on page 15.
Page 15.
Building envelope
For
consultants.
29.
The reason I object to this check is this whole bid process was just effective in design. I talked to a couple of contractors, they hung up the phone on them, not giving them information. The drawings I've seen are just the bevel installation or paper installation that we call for. It's hard to see it on the drawings that we have. This is just a whole process that's all messed up. And it's their design, their drawings, and I don't think we should pay them any more than the deposit they got at this point. We need to investigate more exactly what was going on with this bid. Because it's not, the whole bid process, the design, the submission of the bids, I don't see any of the bids, the winning bid did not say on it, paper with double installation. It doesn't say it on the bid at all. So I don't know how anybody got accepted that, and why there's a differentiation. We need to investigate this and revisit this whole situation. So I don't think they should be paid with the balance on this. We should just hold on to it and see what's going on.
I
For this,
personally
go away.
Excuse me, just for the speaking.
finish. Can I speak
Yes,
now?
go ahead.
Thank you. This is something we've been working on for over 2 years. The stuff, the bids that come in are usually always on the website. We are by law supposed to take the lowest bid that is offered to us. So, you know, they've already done work for us, and now you're saying we shouldn't pay for what they've done? I would like to know why, what, you know.
I don't see the value of $50,000 in what they did. There's no way. It might be like 5,000 or 10,000 in drawings, that's it. And the rest of the process was all messed up.
So Susan, is the money or Greg?
The regular.
I'm sorry, are we having a conversation with everyone here? So-
Well, when we opened it up,
I'm
It's not an
suggesting-
open discussion, if I could call the trustees to speak, because we need to move this along. Excuse me, trustee Adam, did you have a question?
I did.
Okay, go right ahead.
My question is, what is the, and it's $33,000.
I'm sorry, did you?
Yeah, it's $33,000. Is it for services already rendered or not yet rendered?
It's for services that have been rendered today.
Okay, so it's money that we actually do owe them for something that's already been done.
According to the
And if we
contract.
didn't pay that bill, what would possibly happen?
I don't know, they probably take some action, what?
If I could interject, please, I have a copy of page 10 from our attorneys regarding the public contracting of bids. And it clearly states that an improper disclosure of bid information or irregularities is actually an illegal, it is illegal to engage in such bid activities. So I believe at the last board meeting in April, I brought up numerous irregularities in the bid documentation. I brought up the inconsistencies in the envelope consultant's response to numerous bidders, and then looking at the bids that were submitted, the discrepancies and the lack of information, but yet a decision to award the bid was made. So based on the fact that these are irregularities, and although this consultant may have produced some work, his bid process was flawed, and at this point, we're not even in a position to be confident that the results of the bid are accurate because of these inaccuracies. So I have to agree that this check should be removed from the check register, and that we need to do a thorough review of this process to determine if in fact the whole bid process was actually a legal process, and determine what all the irregularities were, not just the many that we uncovered. So I am concerned about this situation, and I would recommend that this particular check to BDC for $33,000 be pulled from the check register, and that we plan to do a thorough review of the process and determine where we stand.
could you give us the transaction number?
Page 10 of the, oh, I'm sorry, are you looking for the check or the attorney's?
The check number was
Check.
7.
I'm on special reserve, page 25. Well, you know, the check register with all the lines is page 15. Special reserve were being withdrawn.
And any information that you've gotten from the lawyer
No,
should be shared with us.
well, it's not for me, it's Susan Lemke gave all of us these binders and it's in there.
Please read that back again, but I couldn't hear it all the way.
It is illegal to engage in bid rigging, bid rotating, improper disclosure of bid information, improper specifications of a particular subcontractor. And then it goes on, opening a sealed bid at any time. So there's numerous reasons why a bid is considered illegal. And we sort of have a couple of those going on with this process. As soon as contractors have a discrepancy in the information they receive, that's a red flag. And when the information is not presented in the bid, that's another red flag. So these are all reasons why there were bids that could not be completed, and even inquiring for the information, they weren't able to get the information. It just seems to mushroom into more and more complications. So I was unsatisfied with it last month, and I feel the same way this month. I'm sorry, Trustee Olson.
Are we talking about, we're supposed to be talking about this particular check? That's what she's
Payment of
talking
the
about,
bills.
not all this other information.
No, I'm sorry, the check for $33,000 is based on the information I'm giving you. That's why I'm requesting you pull the check.
If you want to revisit all of this, I think that's gonna at another time.
Okay, well then my request is, Susan, please pull this check, and we'll move on. Because we're just belaboring this point.
Please, let me ask her. I'm not trying to touch,
Go right ahead.
against you. My question is, since we are in the discussion of payment of bills, if it is brought up that they do not want to pay a particular bill, is this not the time to vote there, one way or another?
This has never come up before, so frankly.
I don't
No,
remember
but I
that
would think
before.
the thing that makes sense to me is that you have a motion on the table, so I think you would have to vote that motion down and do a new motion with that.
Pertaining to this check.
Yeah, well, that would be with that amount of that check removed and not approve the payment of that particular bill. So does that make sense?
Or can I amend the motion?
Yeah, you would present an amended motion right now.
Okay.
But the person that accepted the motion, that made the motion would have to accept that change, which I find.
No, anyone can make an amended motion and it overrides the original motion.
But it has to be accepted by the.
And then it's seconded by anyone. Robert's rules.
Robert's rules, we've always been going according
Right,
to the
so-
way that the person who made and seconded have to say, okay, we'll drop it, and then go to the
No,
next
that's,
one. Well, that's the way we've always done it. I know.
I
it's
know.
not-
There you go.
It's against Robert's rules.
I
Just make
just
an amended
think-
motion.
Well, whatever. If
So
we
it's
need
time
to
to
do that,
change.
I will do that, so that they can motion it. Whatever. Just so that
I
we
make
can
a motion
vote.
to amend that we pay the bills in full except for this check.
I second.
I said, I was okay with it. You were the second. Were you okay with letting it go? Did I continue it?
I believe that apparently, he's an attorney, I'm not an attorney, and we're not the best when it comes to Robert's rules, and I don't have a book on me.
Just, you vote now on the amended motion, and if the amended motion fails, then you vote on the original motion. If you have amended motion and second, it's on the floor.
Okay.
So simple.
Who takes the role of this?
Your clerk.
You're doing for the, that, I just want to verify before we vote, so everybody knows what we're voting for. That's okay. What, I understand what
We're taking a vote for the amended motion.
Yes, so,
Cindy, would you please take the roll?
fine.
So the motion is to reduce the special reserve expense by $33,000 that's listed here. Is that what?
A payment of the bills excluding that particular amount.
Payment in full except for this one check.
No, get her over it. She'll vote no anyway.
Yes.
I vote for yes.
Trustee Olson?
No.
Trustee Levinson?
I don't like the idea, I'm just stating my reason. I don't like the idea of
Excuse me,
voting.
Trustee Rogansky,
Please let me
please,
explain
it's
my
time to vote, it's not time for
Excuse
discussion,
me,
please.
I understand clearly.
Please
You
vote.
are so used to interrupting everything.
Please
This is
vote.
one thing.
Trustee Rogansky, please vote so we may move on.
You move to somebody else, and I will vote back.
When the vote is, motion's called, there's discussion stops.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm asking if I can be called at the end.
She's passing.
Because if I can pass to vote at the end, I have to think about this.
Trustee Schoenfeld.
Yes.
Trustee Gerber.
Yes.
Trustee Anisia. Trustee Pinata.
No.
Trustee Rosansky.
I'm not voting for it the way it is. So no.
I'd like to move for a motion to refer the building bills to committee.
Excuse me, can you read the
Four.
order, please?
That's 4 yeses and 3 noes.
Motion carries, thank you. Trustee, Keenan, do you have a question?
No, I would like to move for a motion to refer this to a committee. That's all, the building, we'll have the roof committee, there should be a roof committee.
We don't have one right now.
I move that we make one.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We'll take a vote. Cindy, please take the roll.
A building committee or roofing committee for the motion?
Building committee technically. to
Please,
evaluate
can we
the-
limit our conversation so we
Is
can move this
everyone
along?
here saying?
I need to know the motion.
What is
Please
it?
repeat the motion.
I move that we commit, refer this to a committee for.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Pula. Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Rosansky.
Yes.
Trustee Schoenfeld.
No.
Trustee Gerber.
No.
Carolyn, can you say yes?
We do need some direction of the board of what the next step would be.
Okay, for now, we're pulling this check.
Right.
I'm asking that they're not paid, and then we need to review the problems with the bidding process. We can certainly get together and, I can bring to you the information I received, and we could, determine what we need to do, since there seems to be so many irregularities in that bid process. I will meet with Susan Lemke, because I've spoken with the contractors and I've received a lot of information. And I shared most of it with you last month. But we could go from that point on. We have a couple, I think we have another item on this agenda that is also reflecting the same situation. So we can certainly move in that direction. But as of now, this check is not going to be paid because of the problems with the bid.
I think everybody needs to see copies of the drawings and specifications, and then we can hash this whole thing out and see exactly what the problems are. And a history of exactly what went on, and maybe some interrogation of some of the contractors that participated in this.
Again, who's the lead?
As a board, okay, as a board, we can do this.
Okay, so
Everybody
it's
needs to
separate.
get a copy of this.
No, this is my motion, and she's asking for clarity. So we're holding a check, and now we need to do something about it. We will have a review process, but we can certainly discuss those details after this board meeting. So we can move on, because like I said, there are other items on this agenda that may be affected by this vote.
But then it will all be included in that budget, correct?
Oh, it doesn't matter to me, you can be there if you're interested in it, absolutely. We can discuss that later. I'm not excluding anyone, I'm just trying to move on with this agenda. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the director's report.
I
I just would like to, last month I told you that I was trying to hire my administrative assistant position, which has been open since mid-January, and I'm very happy to introduce you to my administrative assistant, Margaret. Margaret, can you pronounce your last name? Margaret. Yeah, Margaret helped already with this, just started this week and has helped with put together your budget binder, which you don't need after today. So very grateful to have Margaret's assistance now. Margaret was promoted from within, she was working in the payment service.
Welcome.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that we have heard from the treasurer that we have tax rate litigation for the years 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. It was moved on from the 2009, 2010, all the way up to 2011. So that is working its way through the process, and we don't have that to our lawyers. That is all I have for you. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any questions?
I had some comments. I just wanted to, and I know that it's 8:30 already, but the last meeting we had was until after 10 o'clock, so I'm not really too concerned about taking a minute to congratulate staff on things a bit. I wanted to comment on the Carl Hyacin joining the book talk last month. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with him, but he is a wonderful author who's concerned with nature and saving nature, and he is inspired a movie called Food, which is one of my son's favorites about saving others, so I was very happy to see it join, surprisingly. Another comment that was in the director's report is on page 32, if anyone cares to look, is from someone who asks for yoga, and was very happy that we have it and would like to have more of it. Congratulations to Cecilia for winning, I think it was a grant, in April Lee's book that I thought was fabulous. She had pictures of the staff with no masks because the kids were brave when they came in and saw the people with masks and didn't know who they were. I understand how she feels because it's having to make work. It's kind of funny when the kids come in and are like, who are you? And I wanted to congratulate Sasha again, the article that was fabulous. I'm very proud of the staff here. And I did want to ask, and it was mentioned earlier, and I guess this is actually a question, yes. So the FOIA requests that are done by any board member, I understood those things, and I have seen some of those things. So are the things that are being requested information that is already provided to us? Because it's not confusing.
No. My FOIA requests are because I need the information, and that's the only way I can get them. Every time I've made a request for information, the board took a vote and said I didn't need it. So I.
No.
Could you speak up?
You know, I don't want to argue this, but you know, we're moving on to new era of, well, that's what that behind us. Well, that's what I've been going through for 6 years, but I believe that's behind us, and I would love to move on with this agenda. So thank you for that. I love your yes, thank you so much. So our next item is communications. Is there anything? Okay, so we're moving on to 13 business. May I have a motion to move to approve ordinance 2101 board meeting schedule? Thank you. Are there any comments?
Yes, I would like to make a comment. I would like to change the meetings that will be held in the Commons Meeting Room of the Library Building at 6920 Oakton Street, Niles, Illinois, so they come to begin at 6:30 p.m. rather than 7.
Okay.
So the only change is from 7 to 6.
And in the Commons meeting room.
It's no, they can't be in the Commons room, it's very often in programs. So we will move back to the boardroom.
Unfortunately, due to COVID, I don't see us going back upstairs with having residents sitting right behind us in that close proximity. I motion that it is in this room and that we make accommodations to accommodate the meeting once a month. think we can handle that.
Well, Battle of the Books has been on Wednesday nights for 25.
Oh, I don't want you to change the date, but maybe we can figure out, they can have the entire second floor, but we need a meeting room, or we can have this space that we need. And I realize this was really complicated for your staff to create, and the stage was an issue, but apparently we're able to fit many people on the stage. As we see the chairs there. But Susan, once a month, we cannot meet upstairs, especially if people don't have to wear masks, or they do have to wear masks. And during the pandemic, I just don't think it's the best move for us. And if we're gonna have the number of residents participating, we do need the space.
And that would be a temporary thing until COVID is over.
Well, until people feel safe about it with, no, it's not an excuse. This room is larger and we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're still wearing masks, we're not wearing masks. So this room, I think, is spaced out better.
So when we feel more comfortable.
I don't know, for this year, I think this location would do.
You know, the park district meets in a room this size. The village, you've been there, I'm sure, it meets in a room about this size. There's no reason that we should be meeting in a room this size. That room is much too small. It's only 1/3 of this size. Ceilings are shorter. There's less volume of air. I think this is a safer location for president.
I just want to point out that we are supposed to be moving into phase 5, and the state's guidelines for phase 5 is that life goes back to normal. So,
And that's next month, isn't
that
it?
is next month, that is true. So by the next meeting, we will be in phase 5.
Well, can we take a vote on this?
We don't know.
Are there any other changes to this schedule?
don't know.
I would like to comment.
Oh, please do. Go ahead.
I said we're still making the advance report.
Right, but the fact that you're assuming there's going to be no change.
Second.
We don't know.
I really hate to disclose any program that will take place. And I think that, because we are zooming or streaming the program, the public is still able to do that. It's not that we can't see it.
Well, I also don't think we need to Zoom any longer. If we're gonna have in-person meetings, I would recommend we no longer Zoom because that's so many problems in itself.
Agreed.
But I'm all for in-person meetings, but I think at this point we need a larger meeting room, which would be this room. And Susan, our library is huge. I'm sure we could come up with some ways to accommodate our Battle of the Books.
Well, the thing with Battle of the Books is that it's done, and Olivia knows this because she did Battle. It's the 2 teams in the room at a time, nobody else can be around because then they do the questions.
How large are the teams?
It's the parents.
It's
the parents.
Parents are often
Lots of
sometimes
parents.
as many as 40. Over is often very large, and it can be particularly when their parents are
Think your
there.
schedule
If they do fill up this
one
room.
day.
Not all the teams, some of the smaller
I can't figure out why that's
So
okay.
I would like to suggest, I would put this on the schedule because I thought this would be. I wanted you guys, you new trustees, to have the opportunity to just have a real quick and easy motion to just pass and get that under your belt. I'm going to suggest that somebody make a motion to table this to next month. It needs to be decided next month, but this is not, we need to think this through a little bit more. So
Yes.
you don't have to, but that's my suggestion.
Let's take it
I'm
there.
willing to motion to table it. If people get concerns about it, this is something like you were mentioning, might need some discussion. Plus, next month, since it will be our second month, we will see the size of our audience. Because normally, and I don't want to say, normally, we don't have that many people show up.
Well, that was before, and again,
Well,
this is a board meeting, and
What
what I'm
I-
trying, or when
can
you're
we
finished,
just
I'll talk.
discuss it the next month?
Well, actually, I'm not interested in discussing it any further. What I'm trying to say is a board meeting should take place in a room that is set up for a board meeting, and there should be enough space between the board and the residents. Sitting in a room where I'm a board member and I have residents sitting behind me, it's just not the way board meetings should be set up. The library has done that, yes, but if you attend any board meetings, your trustees should be facing your residents. We're supposed to be interacting with them. It's not a meeting in a school classroom. It's not a meeting for staff, Susan. It's a board meeting. So I'm still accepting the motion or the change to the motion that Susan Schoenfeld suggested, that we start at 6:30, and if the meetings be conducted in the commons.
So you have a motion on the table, you actually have to take.
I second that motion to table.
There's a motion
So
and
you
a
can't-
second, so you have to actually take that, you really shouldn't have had any conversation.
She's not on the board, she can't say.
Okay, we'll vote on her motion.
So, the motion to table. Trustee Levinson?
I vote yes to table.
Trustee Douglas?
No.
Trustee Louisiana? Trustee Adams? Trustee Nakula?
No.
Trustee Olson?
Yes.
Schoenfeld.
That's 3 yeses and 4 noes. I didn't vote.
She didn't vote. Yeah.
I say no.
40 noes.
So that is 4 noes and 3 yeses. The motion to table fails.
Okay, so we're back to the motion, change the meeting time to 6:30, and the location to the Commons meeting room. Are there any other changes or requests regarding this?
I wish to change the date of the August meeting until the 25th next week. Because at that point, people will get more time off for vacations and things like that. And the kids will be back in school at that time.
So I say table it again because I've already put these down. These are okay. I didn't. And are you planning on being out of town yourself, or are you just saying people in general?
I'd like to change it to the 25th.
I think it's the third Wednesday of every month, isn't it?
It's always been the third Wednesday. I know we're not supposed to go according to it always been, except usually during the holidays. You will sometimes change it because, you know, of it being near the holidays.
So I have a motion on the table for the location to be in the Commons and for the time change to 6:30. And now we have a request to change one of the meetings from August 18th to what was it? 23rd.
They're different motions, aren't they? And they're not all.
Should they be two separate motions? Because one would probably pass with no problem, the other one, there might be a couple of questions.
Okay, we have two motions then. May I have a motion to move the board meeting schedule to 6:30 PM and the location in the Commons meeting room? Do I have a motion for that?
Ms. Miller already motioned that. And Susan seconded.
Oh, good, so now we can vote on this motion.
Yes.
Okay, please take the roll.
Trustee Nakula? You made the motion, so this is to go to 6:30
Yes.
and in the Commons. Trustee Olson?
No.
Trustee Rosansky?
I'll say yes, just so we can get things going.
Trustee Schoenfeld?
Yes.
Trustee Douglas?
Yes.
Trustee Louisiana? Trustee Adams? Five yeses, 2 noes.
Thank you. All right, now may I have a motion to change the August 18th board meeting to August 25th? Can I have a second? Thank you.
I would like to table this. I don't understand what's the reason to move it.
So now we'll take a roll. So now we have to have a, do we take a roll now on the first motion, or do we have to take a roll on the table? Okay, so may we have a motion? Oh, that's right, you're right.
I second for her tabling it, I am fine with that because I want to check my calendar too. Because I didn't realize anybody wanted to change.
So we are voting to change the date of the other.
You're voting on the motion to
And the
table.
motion to table it, yes. For next month, so we can check our calendar.
Trustee Olson. Yes. Trustee Rosanna.
Yes.
Trustee Schoenfeld. No. Trustee Gerber.
No.
Trustee Malizia.
Yes.
Trustee King Adams.
Yes.
Steve Polo.
No.
Five yeses. Three no's.
She can't figure it
So did the motion pass or fail?
Okay, so I have, no's for Trustee Gerber, Polo,
out. See ya.
and Trustee Schoenfeld. Three no's. And Malizia, Adams, Olson, Rosanna, Press. So that has,
Thank you, so it passed the table, okay. Moving on,
that date is tabled.
okay. Moving on to the next item, 13B, may I have a motion to move the Library Board of Trustees approve the recommended negotiated renewal of the healthcare insurance plan with Blue Cross and Blue Shield beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending on June 30th, 2022.
I will.
So, I invited our broker, Captain Mooney, GCG, who actually helped to bring our census to market and the pricing that you see before you. I'd like to invite her to speak with us.
Thank you.
Oh, so we're having a presentation, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, sure.
That's fine, okay, I'm sorry, I just didn't know, thank you.
I'm Catherine Looney from GCG Financial.
Thank
I've
you.
had the pleasure to be able to work with the staff over a number of years, making sure that we're educating them for their benefits, what is available, talking about networks, talking about how to best utilize their health plan. And so we've established a very good relationship, so I thank you for the opportunity to get to know your staff. And as we did the evaluation this year, we received the renewal, and there was an increase. We did take it out to market to bid. We did get declines that were not competitive, and then we got one from Humana. It was a similar plan, but it was not competitive. It was completely higher than what the renewal was. But we did have one from United Healthcare, so we asked the employees to look at the networks to make sure, because if someone was going to be out of network, it would mean more money out of pocket on their behalf, so it was not comparing apples to apples. I did go back to Blue Cross, negotiated with Blue Cross, and that's where we came up with a reduction over our current premium. So I think the report that was in the packet that you all had the opportunity to read clearly lays out the process that is done, but I did want to entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the trustees? No, I think we're good.
I look
I
forward to
appreciate
working
you
with
coming.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Cindy, could you please call the roll? And this is for the Blue Cross Blue Shield, correct?
Yes.
Just want to make sure, okay. All right, got it, all right.
Trustee McClure.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Levinson.
Yes.
Trustee Schoenfeld. Trustee Gerber.
Yes.
Trustee Mizek. Trustee King Adams. Motion carries.
Okay, our next item is 13C. May I have a motion to move the library board of trustees approve the recommended price tag to be charged for health insurance beginning on July 1, 2021 and ending on June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
And second.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes, I think we need to table this until we do our budget review process and bring this up at that time, which is going to be, we should have been doing it at this point already, I think, but
Do I have a second?
table this until the next.
Okay, so we have a table, a second, and now we're ready for a vote. I think I'm getting good at this.
All right, can I ask you to please restate what the motion was? I want to make sure I understand completely.
The motion is to table the discussion, but I thought I was seconding the motion to pass to approve it.
You were seconding the motion to discuss it.
Okay, so.
And like everything else, you turn on a table now.
Okay.
So we're at the table stage, okay? And we're voting on tabling this until next month.
So we're voting to table, we just voted for Blue Cross Blue Shield. So
Right.
what exactly are we voting? for?
We're voting to table this agenda item, which is the price tag to be charged for health insurance. This is the portion where, this is where a portion of it is paid by the employees and a portion of it is paid by,
By the library.
Sometimes it's referred to as contribution level.
Yes.
So the referral, so the approval of the motion is to renew the contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. To
Yes.
evaluate the contribution, the employee contribution
Okay,
is
thank
what he's
you.
asking to table.
That's what, I'm like, we just voted for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Okay, thank you.
And my only concern, if I can voice a concern, is the fact that we do go into open enrollment to proceed to let employees know what their contribution will be. So at that point in time, we would have to let them know that the board has decided to defer this conversation until another meeting. So I would appreciate knowing when that's going to be. So when we're doing the open enrollment meetings, we can say their current contribution is going to remain the same, and there may be a change.
That's a little over a month away, isn't it?
It is, but we have to give them the information
I understand.
30 days prior. And so in that sense, we start doing open enrollment meetings.
Yeah.
So you start doing open enrollment, I'm sorry?
We do not have them on the calendar yet, but typically we try to do them the middle of May
Okay.
so that individuals have that opportunity to review
Middle of May.
for a July 1st effective date.
Okay, it's May 19th.
Well, we start now. Last year, I think we did it the last week. We did Zoom meetings the last week of May.
So you'll be starting when this year?
I have not put it on the calendar. We were waiting to make sure it was approved and whether we had to go through the enrollment
So would you
process.
say we have a week?
We probably pull everything together so that we have Zoom meetings for the employees, I'll say by the end of May.
Okay, thank you for that, okay. Okay, so, we have a motion to table. And we're going to take, are there any more questions?
If we do table the motion, then it would be put on the agenda for next month.
Well, no, we have to fit it within the timeline of open
So we
enrollment.
would have to have another meeting between
Yes.
now and then.
Absolutely.
For the purpose of finding out if we can lower it, or what is the purpose for tabling?
We're going to discuss it as part of our budget. Budget.
But the budget's not till next agenda, next month, correct? So if we have another meeting in between the two, it would only be on this one item.
As
It
far
may
as
be.
I'm concerned, I
It
think
may
we
be.
will time it structure because it starts on July 1st and here we are like 5 weeks ahead of time. We have a special meeting.
So with the special
We should
meeting,
discuss this as part of it.
so you're proposing a special meeting for the budget, not just for this item?
This included.
At this point, we're tabling up
We're tabling it,
to,
right.
yes, and we will make sure the meeting is scheduled well enough in advance because our staff needs to be available for open enrollment.
Right, so that would only be next week. We would
So
have
right
to be
now,
next
we're
week.
tabling. And we have till the end of the month, so we need
But
to.
that's next week,
Right.
and I have to come next week, so
Okay.
it's,
But that's all right.
and you don't have time to have a budget meeting next week. You're not, you have a binder that big for the budget, so you'll need a lot of time to review it.
We would like to table this, so we
This
have motion
begins-
on the table.
I believe from what I read in the documents, I believe these new rates start July 1st. So
Correct.
we have 30.
But then the staff needs time to decide what they're gonna do, and they'll need to know how much it's going to cost them.
And even if we could meet next
Take
week,
the
that only
vote,
gives
please.
them 1 week to make that decision. That's not fair.
What's the deadline, Catherine? Does it have to be next week, or could they have the meeting in June, like the first week of June?
I think the difficulty that I see is that people need to make a decision on whether they're making an election of coverage, whether it's for their employees, spouse, children, or family. That's the challenge. We do need to make sure by the 15th of June that we have their elections in, so that we
Yes,
make sure they have
Oh,
coverage for July 1st.
We don't plan on waiting that long.
So if we're able to, or I go back to, or we part of this, that due to the, I can go to Blue Cross and I can say there is going to be an additional board discussion, can I have an extended open
If we
or
could,
limited open enrollment?
Okay,
Should
great.
it be a gross change in what the contributions are?
Okay,
I can ask for that, I can request it, they don't always give it to me for sizes of your group, but I can request it.
well, I believe if we could get through our agenda, we may have some of these questions answered before you even leave tonight, to see what will work best for you and our staff, because we're not trying to ignore the urgency of this. Right, so if we could just vote, I think the motion on the table, the motion to table is up, correct?
Stephen Pula?
I-
Trustee Pula?
Yes.
Trustee Olson? No. Trustee Levinson? No. Trustee Coe? Yes. Trustee Gerber?
Yes.
Trustee Levinson?
Yes.
Trustee Keith Adams? Four yeses and 3 noes. Five is
Okay, the next item on the agenda is, we are at 13D. May I have a motion regarding the tentative pending receipt of a final agreement? Move to instruct the executive director to sign the agreement on behalf of the Niles-Maine District Library with complete roofing for the roofing project approved on Wednesday, April 21st, 2021.
Well,
Second.
Wasn't there a change?
There was a change, yeah, the wording pending attorney review was added to that motion. Pending attorney review.
And you haven't received it yet?
No.
Because I know when I talked to her when we were still waiting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any comments regarding this?
So this is, will move and Susan, you got signed.
The comments are, we don't have the contract yet. I think this whole roof project needs to be revisited totally. So we don't have a contract, we're not signing a contract. As far as I'm concerned, it's the whole situation is like. approve a contract.
I think instead of, like,
But he's finished.
I think we, has been stated before, we've been through this, we've been working on it for 2 years. We've looked at all the paperwork, we all approved it, and it wasn't just off the tip of our tongue, it was totally decided upon. I mean, it's been well thought out by the board. Look at the paperwork, you can see the information if you need.
It doesn't seem like it was well thought out by the board.
Okay, please,
Well-
Trustee McCullough, just let her finish, please. Thank you.
I thought she was done.
There was a lot more information than, there was a lot more information that we learned during the board meeting.
Which is what?
Well, whatever you're doubting or contesting.
If I could just interject, because we really should have conversations with each other. This item 13D is the other motion that is identical to, I believe it was 13, let's see, there were two issues, the check. The check that we have pulled from the check register, which is being held because of the inconsistencies in the bid process. So the questions about the bid process and the irregularities and the issues that existed amongst the contractors are why we pulled the check. So there's issues with the person who was awarded the bid because the bids that we received weren't complete and we voted on them. So we're saying because the bid process and irregularities, we're holding back the check. And to proceed to sign a contract for the same roofing project is being questioned for the same reasons. The bid process was found to be irregular in the way it was written, there were inconsistencies in information, and there was difficulty on the part of many of the bidders. So that's why we are looking at this item 13B as we did the check in the check register. So there's a motion to approve this, there's a motion on the table, and the motion is tentative pending, I think she called it attorney pending.
The first part of that got struck, actually, and the revised motion would be, so striking out the tentative pending receipt of final agreement. It was moved to instruct the executive director to sign the agreement on behalf of the Niles-Maine District Library with complete roofing for the roofing project approved on Wednesday, April 21st, 2021, pending attorney review.
Okay, so the contract is still pending, we do not have a contract. Okay, so it's a pending contract at the end of the sentence. Okay.
One of the things I see here, our district put a roof on Iceland Park. They paid $16 a square foot, comparable roof. Your bid is over $40 a square foot. I can't comprehend how you can have such an increase.
Well, you were here for all the meetings.
Excuse me, Trustee McCullough, the motion on the table is based on a contract that's pending. And the director's requesting that we move to instruct the executive director to sign the agreement on behalf of the Niles District Library with complete roofing for roofing project approved on Wednesday, April 21st, 2021, pending the contract from the attorney. So we have a motion, we have a second. Can we take a vote on this now?
Where you're supposed to be discussing.
Oh, do you have more discussion? I'm sorry, are there more comments? No? Okay. Cindy,
I
please.
I think that it's time to stop being negative about everything that we've done in the past. All of this was done after we studied for a very long time, and it wasn't just a rash decision. I think that we should be able to, pending attorney review, continue with this.
Oh, sure.
I just want to mention, Joe, you said it was over $40 a square foot. The bid is for $716,400 for 40,000 square feet of roofing. And the math works out to $17.91 per square foot. So far less than 40, but I admit that it's more than 16, although I don't know how big the purchase is.
Or if you have the same
I don't know.
requirements
Yeah, I don't
every year
know.
by government are.
Okay, excuse me, thank you for your input, but
Thank
the
you.
motion on the table
Yes.
is,
I understand the motion.
okay, can we, I mean, with all the side conversation, doesn't get us to the important
Then
things
let's
on the
get to
agenda.
it.
So can we, Cindy, are we ready to take a roll now? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Trustee Mahula?
No.
Trustee Olson?
Yes.
Trustee Rozansky?
Yes.
Trustee Schoenfeld?
No.
Trustee Goodwin?
No.
Trustee Mayfield?
No.
Trustee Canada? Three yeses, 4 noes.
The next item on our agenda, 13E. Yes, 13E. May I have a motion for discussion and setting of dates for the 2021-2022 budget special meeting?
I think we get to do the motion on that since it's a discussion. Bob, I need the setting of the dates, I promise.
Okay. May I have a motion? In a second. Sue seconded. Oh, Joe seconded, sorry. Okay, if I could just start out, were we all supposed to receive a budget binder? Or we take them off of a cart? I didn't know, there's no way. Right, well, no, I can get hold of it, don't worry about it. I just noticed they had it and I didn't know.
Those are
where
the
they were.
trustee binders that we've all received at the orientations.
Oh, that was the binder where that's where page 10 is, it's in there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so, well, it's open for discussion. Do we have any discussion?
What are the dates?
We are, okay, it's discussion for setting dates. Okay, so, well, I would like to amend the motion. And I'd like to amend the motion to table it, and the reason is because we are receiving our binders today, and it would provide additional time for trustees to thoroughly review the budget binder that we're receiving this evening and their calendars to schedule the 2021-22 budget process. So can I have a second? It seems when I table, I get a second and then we question later.
Okay, so can I just clarify, if you table this, you are tabling it to the June meeting, and you will not have a chance to revisit it.
If I could just get through this board agenda, I think I can answer your questions. Believe it or not, I really thought a lot of this out and I have some
I'm not
suggestions.
trying to question you, it's just
Yes.
that if you need to set the date of the next meeting before we leave tonight.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Can we
That's what
table,
this is for.
can we table, we need to table this motion so that we can move forward, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is that possible? Because we're not ready to set dates right now.
Well,
Multiple
will
dates.
this negatively affect our insurance thing that we talked? They promised her we'd get it done.
If we can get through this meeting without all the side comments, I really do have a plan here.
Well, you have to leave room for discussion.
Okay, all right, if we want to discuss it, it's fine, but keep questioning
You
me
need a
about
second
something
on your
on the
motion.
agenda.
Carol, you need a second on your motion.
Yes.
Do you have a second?
I agree.
Now you have discussion.
But it was motion to table, so there's no discussion, right?
Yeah, once you table, there's no discussion, because it's
It's
tabled.
ruled upon, yeah.
So we didn't give a chance.
Okay, let's put it this way, all right. I withdraw my motion to table because everyone's just jumping in anyway. So let me go to this point. I do not want to schedule budget meeting dates tonight. I think we need to pick a date to do that after we've had time to go through that budget binder. Because the trustees, I feel, and myself personally, need to be informed, and then we move forward, so. Yes?
I suggest we have a meeting next week to kind of review some of this material we here and then set dates for a budget request.
Well, actually, what I was hoping to do was not set the schedule for the meetings tonight, but my plan was to schedule a special board meeting on Monday, May 24th at 6:30 in this room to plan for the 21-22 budget process, which is more than one day, by the way, and to review and revise our methods and procedures. And this would be an in-person meeting, no Google, Zoom at that time, and I think we can get a lot done. And I can present an agenda to you in the morning, Susan, for posting. So now, that's my motion, or is that my recommendation? Do I make a motion, and then in order to talk, do I need to get a second?
You make a motion for a budget workshop setting, and you get a second on your motion.
Okay,
I second that.
yes.
So we have the motion.
Yes, we do, I agree.
We had that motion, and then there was then there was an amendment to table, and we withdrew the amendment.
Table.
So.
We need to vote on that one, and then go on to mine one. Or can we, I amended it.
Yeah, you withdrew that, so that's fine. And that other motion wasn't really a motion, because all it was is discussion and setting of dates, but you didn't actually set a date yet. There's been nothing to vote on yet. So now you're making a motion that is something to vote on. She's actually going on May 24th.
Are we good?
Which is fine.
So we can now we can, and did I get a second?
I second.
Okay, so now you want to.
Yeah, my question is, since we are on a time crunch with the insurance, is that the date we are going to definitely make our decision so that they can go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's a high priority.
No, and like I told you, I've already worked this all out. I've been through the agenda, and it's on my list.
Okay, fine. I just appreciate you clarifying it.
Any other comments, questions? We
I
take a
just
vote.
think it's strange that we have to have a meeting to set meetings. And also Susan won't be here next week.
I will be here Monday.
And I think it's really interesting that we had everything scheduled out already, but we didn't know.
I knew what I wanted for the budget meeting. I would have been discussing it with all of you anyway. You don't have to be president to make a recommendation for a date. You just need to have people interested in working with you. And one day maybe you'll be interested in working with me, and we won't have these nasty kind of comments. But may we please have a vote?
Trustee Gerber?
Yes.
Trustee Denizia?
Yes.
Trustee Adam? Trustee Bakula?
Yes.
Trustee Olson? No. Trustee Romansky?
This is next Monday, correct?
It's Monday.
Yeah. Anna, you're talking 6:30 again? Or
Yes,
7?
yes, 6:30.
Trying to think, because I think I did something scheduled for Monday. Give me a second. Okay. Yes.
Trustee Schoenfeld?
Yes.
5 yeses, no.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 14 other. Do we have any trustee comments for other?
I would like to, can I set up my own email address for the library?
You have the instructions for setting up your library email?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need to log into your library email.
Well,
But you want your personal one, that actually you can do. Our attorney strongly advises all trustees to use the library's email for the purpose of transparency and being able to respond to FOIA requests. So, and unfortunately, our security settings do not allow emails to be forwarded. And that was a Microsoft security setting, not our own. So, yeah, unfortunately, I know it will be a nuisance to check a second email account, but we will have to stop using your Yahoo account and start using just the library account, because you have to have access to that, to all of the messages that come to library trustees.
I think his question is to create his own trustee email.
He has that, yeah, that was part of his.
No, not
application.
the outlook. I think he's saying to create his own trustee.
No, it
Email
has to be through the NilesLibrary.org.
But in order for him to get, if he created his own trustee email account, it wasn't an Outlook, I guess, not through the library, he would still get all his email, because wouldn't his email address
Right,
be
but our
public
IT
site?
department would have no access to that email account. And our, as I said, our lawyers strongly recognize that all trustees do all of their library official communicating through library account.
So
so basically it's not a secure email.
Your email would not be a secure email. The library's email is extremely secure, and that is part of the reason why it should be run through the library's security settings.
But what I'm saying is my email address at the library is not a secure email because anybody at the library can get it.
Oh, heavens no.
Or your personal.
No. You're not, it's only for you, you will be the only one who knows the password. Yeah, IT would, I think, not even see the password, they would have to go in and reset it to be able to gather your emails if you had a FOIA request. So no, it's very, very secure.
Okay.
And nobody here would ever dream of going in and looking at it.
Second thing is you mentioned the sunshine law publication. Would you be able to get that for us?
The open meeting act, right?
No, it was the
Gillick Sunshine Law.
Say it again.
The Gillick, G-L-I-C.
I'm not familiar with what you're,
The
I
Sunshine Law.
thought you mentioned that in the tour.
no, something not familiar to me. But if you send me the name of what you're interested in getting, I can certainly make those very short. Absolutely.
Okay, I have a couple of things. Susan, regarding our attorneys, I've learned through this past year especially that there are a lot of requests that go through our attorneys, and I'm not sure what the criteria is for us to require their expertise, but I'm concerned that the requests are very numerous, and I would like to ask that in the future, if you need to contact our attorneys for, I don't know if it's advice or information, do you think that could be brought to the board president's attention, and then maybe the board could discuss if we need to use them for all these different reasons? Because I think for a lot of things, our staff's pretty knowledgeable or experienced after all these years, and I'm thinking maybe everything isn't as necessary as it's becoming just maybe a habit.
Oh, it's not a habit. I only consult